The alien market was loud and full of colors. Traders shouted. Creatures from different planets walked around, buying and selling things. The air smelled of spices, smoke, and metal. But no one noticed the girl lying in the dirt near the back wall. She was thin, so thin her bones showed through her gray skin. Her hair was dry, tangled, and full of dust. Her clothes were torn, barely covering her. Her lips were cracked. She hadn't eaten in days. Her name was Clara, but no one called her that anymore. To most people, she was just that starving girl in the corner. She sat with her knees pulled to her chest, eyes half closed. Every now and then, she raised her hand weakly and whispered, "Please, food, anything." But the crowd didn't care. Some even laughed. One alien merchant walked past and threw a small stone at her. "Go away. You make my customers lose their appetite," he shouted. She didn't respond. She had no energy left. Another day passed. Another sun rose. Clara still lay there, her stomach hurting, her mouth dry. Her body was cold, but the worst pain came from her heart. She had offered her body for food days ago, begging anyone who passed, but no one cared. Some just smirked. Some tried to use her and then left without giving her anything. She had stopped fighting. Her eyes stayed on the dusty ground, watching small insects crawl past. At least they had food. Then something strange happened. Footsteps stopped near her. Slow, heavy footsteps, not like the others. She looked up, blinking. A shadow stood above her. It was a tall man, a human. Humans were rare here. Most of them kept to their own areas. Rich aliens didn't like them much. But this one stood quietly, looking at her with calm, serious eyes. She blinked again. Maybe she was dreaming. He didn't speak at first. Then he slowly knelt down in front of her. "Are you alive?" he asked in a soft voice. Clara opened her mouth, but only a dry sound came out. She tried to nod. The man looked around. Other aliens stared, whispering. Some laughed. One shouted, "Hey human, leave the trash alone." The human ignored them. He opened a small bag he carried on his shoulder. From inside, he pulled out a water bottle and a food pack. Real food, warm food. He opened the bottle and held it near her lips. Clara's hands trembled as she reached up. She took a small sip. Then another. Then she drank like she hadn't seen water in 100 years. Tears filled her eyes. He handed her the food next. Soft bread and something warm with it. She held it carefully, like it might disappear. She looked up at him, confused. "Why?" she whispered. "Why are you helping me?" The human smiled a little. "Because you're not trash," he said. "You're alive. You matter." She didn't know what to say. Her lips moved, but no words came out. The human sat beside her in the dirt. The aliens around them kept staring, some with disgust, some with curiosity. But he didn't care. "What's your name?" he asked. Clara, she said quietly, a bit of strength coming back to her voice. "Nice to meet you, Clara." He said, "I'm Mark." She stared at him again. No one had asked her name in a long, long time. Mark looked around. "You can't stay here. You'll die." "I know," she said softly. "Do you want to come with me?" He asked. Her eyes widened. "Why?" He thought for a moment. "Because no one deserves to die like this. Not you, not anyone." Clara looked at the food in her hand, the water bottle now almost empty. Her chest felt strange. A warmth she hadn't felt in years. Maybe ever. "Okay," she whispered. Mark stood and held out his hand. She hesitated, then slowly took it. Her legs were weak. She almost fell. But he caught her. The market went quiet for a moment. Everyone stared as the human walked away, supporting the thin alien girl. No one said anything. No one stopped him. And for the first time in many years, Clara felt something new. Hope. She had always been touched with hunger in others' eyes, But this was the first time someone touched her without even laying a hand on her. The inside of his shelter was quiet, too quiet. Clara sat on the edge of a small cot, still, holding the half-eaten bread. She hadn't let it go since he gave it to her. The warmth of it had faded, but the memory hadn't. Mark moved around the room, pouring water into a metal cup, heating up something on a small heat plate. The walls were plain, gray, and old. But to Clara, this place was a palace. He didn't stare at her. He didn't ask her to undress. He didn't even ask her name again. He simply placed the cup of warm water near her and said, "Drink more. You need to hydrate." She reached out slowly. Her hands were still shaking, not from fear now, but from disbelief. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice soft. "My workshop," he replied. "I live alone. Don't worry. You're safe." Safe. That word hit her like thunder. Safe? What did that even mean anymore? The last time she thought she was safe, someone had locked her in a crate and sold her like she was nothing. The last time she trusted kindness, she woke up in pain, with bruises and no food. Clara's eyes scanned the small space. There were tools on the table, metal scraps on shelves, a half-built drone in the corner. She had expected chains or a locked door. Instead, she saw an open window. She looked at the man again. He wasn't handsome. He had scars on his arms, a tired face, and eyes that had clearly seen too much. But his hands were gentle when he moved things. His voice had no sharp edges. Just calm. She pulled the blanket around herself tighter. Mark placed a second plate of food beside her. Not fancy food. Just cooked grain, some protein cubes, and a slice of fruit. "Eat," he said. Clara looked down at it, then back at him. Don't you want something in return?" He blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" I offered myself for food before. That's how it works, right?" Mark stood silent for a long moment. His face changed just slightly, like someone had hit him with a memory he didn't want. Then he sat down across from her. "Not too close. I'm not like the others," he said simply. "But why would you feed me? Just because I was hungry? Is that such a strange reason?" She didn't answer. Her chest felt tight. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "I saw you in the dirt. I saw how they looked at you, like you were already dead." "I was," she said. Mark nodded. "Not anymore." For a while, there was silence. She ate slowly, carefully, like the food might vanish if she wasn't gentle with it. Then her hands started shaking again, and not because she was cold. Mark noticed. "Are you okay?" She looked up at him with teary eyes. "I don't understand." You don't have to," he said. "Just rest." "But what if you change later? What if you turn like the others?" He shook his head. "If I ever become like them, I hope someone throws me out into the dirt too." She laughed, just a little. A weak, broken laugh. But it was still a laugh. It was the first sound of life she had made in years. "Can I stay for one night?" she asked. "You can stay as long as you need," Mark said without pause. The words felt heavy. Big. Too big for someone like her. She had always lived 1 hour at a time. One meal. One breath. Now someone was offering her time. Days. Hope. Maybe even healing. Clara finished her food and placed the empty plate on the floor. Then she looked at the man again and asked, "Do you really expect nothing from me?" He smiled. "I expect you to get better." And for the first time, she believed maybe she could. She had only known one way to survive. Now kindness confused her more than cruelty ever did. Clara stood quietly in the corner of the room. Mark had gone outside to collect water, leaving her alone for the first time. The blanket still clung to her thin body, but her eyes stared at the small cot she had slept on. She had eaten, drunk clean water. She was still breathing, and yet something inside her felt strange. Unsteady. She touched her own chest, where her heart beat softly beneath her skin. No bruises, no chains, no pressure, just warmth. Why? Why was this human feeding her, protecting her, giving her space? No one gave without wanting something in return. Not in this world. So maybe it was time to pay him back the only way she knew. When Mark returned, the sun was starting to dip behind the metal rooftops. His boots were dusty, his hands wet from carrying the water jug. He entered and set it down carefully on the counter. He turned and froze. Clara was standing in the middle of the room. She had let the blanket fall from her shoulders. Her torn robe was pulled halfway open, exposing her thin, scarred body. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, but also with something else. Acceptance. Like she was giving up something sacred. Mark didn't move. His jaw tightened. Clara, what are you doing? She swallowed hard. Her voice was quiet but steady. This is payment. No, Mark said instantly, his voice sharp. She flinched. I owe you, she whispered. You fed me. You gave me water. A place to sleep. No one does that for free. I'm not stupid. I know what I have to give. Mark stepped forward, but not to touch her. He picked up the blanket gently and wrapped it around her shoulders again, like putting fire on ice. Clara didn't understand. I'm not a fool, she said, her voice shaking. This is how it works. I give my body, or you take it. Everyone does. Mark crouched down so their eyes were level. I'm not everyone, he said. Then what do you want from me? He looked at her long and hard. I want you to heal. I want you to eat, rest, feel safe. I want you to look in the mirror one day and not see a thing, just a person. Clara's breath caught in her throat. But I'm nothing. I'm ruined. You're alive, Mark said. That means you still have worth. She started crying, not loudly, not like a scream. Just soft, slow tears running down her cheeks like a silent waterfall. No one had ever told her that before. Worth? She had been passed around like garbage, sold, used, thrown away. Now this man, this stranger, was speaking like she was made of gold. She sank to her knees. I don't know how to live any other way. Mark sat beside her on the floor. Then I'll teach you. That night, Clara slept again on the cot, but this time with no fear of footsteps creeping near her. She held the blanket tight, not because she was cold, but because she was starting to believe it was real. Mark sat by the window, watching the sky turn dark. He didn't sleep. His mind was full of questions about who she was, what had happened to her, and what he'd just promised. But one thing he knew for sure, this girl didn't need to be rescued by a hero. She needed someone who refused to be another monster. And if that was all he could give her, then that would be enough. She woke up, and for the first time, nothing hurt. No cold metal, no ropes, no hands pulling at her in the dark, only soft cloth and silence. Clara opened her eyes slowly. The ceiling above her was plain, made of cracked stone and wires. But to her, it looked more beautiful than any palace. For once, her body wasn't screaming in pain. Her stomach was not twisting with hunger. And her skin, though still marked with scars, was wrapped in clean cloth. She turned her head. The cot was small, but it was hers for now. A pillow under her head, a blanket tucked around her body. Everything smelled like something old. But safe. She still wasn't used to that word. Outside the small window, early light from the twin suns shone gently through. It was morning, and she was still alive, not in a cage. Not on the street, not being dragged away. She sat up slowly. Her hands brushed the blanket, testing it, like it might turn to ash if she moved too fast. Then she heard a sound, something soft, a hum. Mark was at the other side of the room, stirring something in a pan. He wore the same simple shirt and boots, but there was something steady about him, something quiet. When he noticed her awake, he smiled slightly. Good morning. Clara blinked, Morning? He nodded. You slept for a long time. That's good. Your body needs rest. She lowered her eyes. I'm sorry. For what? For wasting your space. Your time. Your food. Mark shook his head. You didn't waste anything. You survived. That's all I wanted. He placed a bowl on a tray and walked it over to her. Inside was warm grain, soft and sweet-smelling. A few slices of fruit. A small cup of water. She stared at it in disbelief. You can eat all of it, he said gently. No one's going to take it from you. Her hands reached out, but they paused in midair. I don't deserve this, she whispered. Yes, you do. Clara's lips trembled. She took the bowl with shaking fingers and brought it to her lap. Then she picked up a spoon and slowly, carefully, began to eat. With each bite, her eyes filled more. The taste was not special. But the feeling was. She hadn't eaten like this in years, without fear, without being rushed, without someone waiting for her to finish so they could take something from her. And when she reached the last bite, something broke inside her. She started crying. She covered her mouth and curled forward, tears falling onto the blanket. Not loud sobs, just deep, painful weeping that came from a place even she didn't understand. Mark said nothing. He simply sat on the floor near her and let her cry. Clara couldn't stop. Her body shook as years of pain, shame, and fear poured out through her tears. I'm sorry, she said again and again. I'm sorry I'm broken. Sorry I'm weak. You're not broken, Mark said quietly. I don't know how to live like this. She whispered. That's okay, he said. You don't have to know. You just have to keep breathing. She looked at him through blurred eyes. Why are you doing this? Mark looked down at his hands, thinking, maybe. Because I know what it's like to be alone, he said softly. I know what it's like to wish someone, just one person, would help. Clara wiped her face with the sleeve of the robe he had given her. I was ready to die, she said. I know. She took a deep breath. But now, I don't want to, Mark nodded. Good, that means we're winning. That night, after a warm wash and another quiet meal, Clara lay in bed again. The blanket felt even softer now. The pillow, a bit warmer, but her heart still hurt in ways she couldn't explain. She turned to look at Mark sitting at the workbench, fixing a damaged drone under a soft light. He didn't act like a savior, or a master, or a hero. Just a man who didn't walk past. And that, somehow, made him the rarest thing she had ever known. She once wore gold chains and silk robes. Now she cried over a wooden spoon. Mark had noticed it days ago. Clara moved with strange grace, even when her body was weak. Her hands handled spoons and cloth with silent skill. She sat with her back straight, like someone had once trained her to sit like a lady. But now, she sat in a corner of his small workshop, holding a spoon like it was a sword. Her hands trembled not from fear, but from memory. Mark handed her a cup of warm tea and sat beside her. You've been quiet today, he said gently. She didn't look at him. I remembered something, she whispered. Mark didn't push her. He let the silence grow. Then she spoke. I was born in a house made of glass and silver, she said, voice low. My mother dressed me in gowns stitched by machines. I had servants, guards, teachers. Mark raised his eyebrows, but didn't interrupt. I was the third daughter of House Cirella, she said. A noble family on my homeworld. We owned land, ships, even slaves. She stopped and looked down. I never thought I would become one. Mark waited. Then the famine came, she continued. Crops died. Trade routes collapsed. My father's name meant nothing without food to back it. One by one, the family sold everything to survive. Her hands gripped the spoon tighter, and when there was nothing left to sell, they sold me. Mark didn't flinch. He didn't speak, but his fists slowly clenched on his knees. They said I was a gift to keep the Alliance alive. she said. But I was just a body to be used. Passed between hands like coin. Stripped of my name, my title, my clothes. Her voice broke. I forgot what my own voice sounded like. Mark leaned closer, but still didn't touch her. And no one came looking for you? She laughed a dry, bitter sound. My family pretended I died. It was easier for them. Easier to erase me. Clara turned her face away, wiping tears with her sleeve. But you still survived, Mark said. I don't know why, she whispered. I didn't want to. Not after what they did to me. Not after what I became. He looked at her carefully. You didn't become anything. You were hurt, abused, but you're still you. She shook her head. You don't understand. I do more than you think. Mark stood and walked to a small chest near his cot. He opened it slowly, pulling out a small metal disc. He handed it to her. She looked at it, confused. It's my medal, he said. For saving lives during the war. Her eyes widened. You're a soldier? Was, Mark said. But even heroes can be forgotten. My planet doesn't even remember my name. I fought for them. Bled for them, and then they tossed me aside when peace came. Clara stared at the medal, her fingers brushing over the scratched surface. That's why I live out here, he added. Far from the big cities. Far from people who only remember you when they need you. For a moment, the silence felt less heavy. I guess we're both leftovers, she said softly. Mark smiled. Maybe, but leftovers still have flavor. She laughed through her tears. Later that night, Clara walked outside under the twin moons. The wind was gentle. The sky looked like spilled stars. She felt different, not healed. Not whole. But seen. Her past had been full of golden cages and silver lies. But this small room, this quiet man, this cup of tea. It all felt more real than anything she had ever known. And for the first time in years, Clara wondered. Maybe she wasn't worthless. Maybe she was just waiting for the right place to begin again. Asterisk. The knock at the door was too calm. Too polite. The kind of knock that didn't ask for permission. It expected to be obeyed. Mark put down the tool in his hand. The soft hum of his workshop stopped. He looked toward the door, frowning. Clara had just finished drying the set of dishes. Her eyes met his, and something in her face changed. Her body stiffened, like a hunted animal hearing the rustle of leaves. The knock came again, slower this time, louder. Mark walked to the door and opened it just a crack. Standing outside were two aliens dressed in fine clothes, clean, sharp, expensive. Their eyes were cold. One was tall, thin, with silver skin and a gold band across his chest. The other held a data pad. Human, the tall one said. You have something that belongs to House Sorella. Mark didn't blink. I don't take things that don't want to be taken. We are not here to argue, the second one said, holding up the pad. The girl inside Subject 3F, formerly Clara of Sorella, is registered property under noble claim. Mark's jaw tightened. She's not property. She was purchased legally, the tall alien replied. She disappeared. But now that she's been found, we are here to take her back. Behind him, Clara stood frozen. She had heard every word. Mark stepped outside and closed the door behind him. You're not taking her, he said flatly. The two aliens looked at each other and smirked. This is not your choice, said the one with the pad. The contract was made under Imperial law. You are interfering with noble business. Mark leaned closer. You listen to me very carefully, he said. I don't care about your laws. I don't care about your contracts. She's a person. She stays. The silver-skinned one raised a hand and suddenly, two more aliens stepped out of a waiting transport nearby. Guards. Armed. Clara opened the door slowly. Her voice came out like broken glass. Don't fight them, she said. They'll hurt you. Mark didn't turn around. His voice was calm, but full of steel. "Go back inside, Clara." "But, now." She hesitated, then stepped back and shut the door. The silver-skinned alien smiled. "You're brave, human. But you don't understand how this galaxy works." Mark's eyes narrowed. "No, you don't understand how humans work." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an old badge, faded, but real. "Veteran of Earth's Third Contact War," he said. "This badge gives me protection under the Galactic Refugee Sanctuary Law." The alien frowned. "She is not a refugee. She is now," Mark interrupted. "She fled abuse, slavery. That makes her a refugee under human law. You try to take her, and you'll be arrested the moment you step on Earth territory again." For the first time, the aliens didn't speak. The guards hesitated. "Leave," Mark said. "You have no power here, not anymore." The silver-skinned alien stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned. "This isn't over." They left without another word. Inside, Clara stood against the wall. Shaking. Mark came in and closed the door behind him. "They're gone," he said softly. She looked at him, eyes full of fear, shock, and something else. "You stood against them," she said. "For me, of course I did. But why?" Mark sighed and sat down. "Because I promised you'd be safe here, and I don't break my promises." Clara slowly walked to him. Her legs were still weak, but her steps were steady. She sat beside him and whispered, "They will come back, stronger, with more." "I know. Then why don't you tell me to leave?" she asked. "I'm just trouble for you." Mark looked at her and smiled. "You're not trouble. You're worth fighting for." And that was the moment Clara realized she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was being protected. She was being chosen. She once begged for scraps in the dirt. Now the whole market went silent when she walked by. The sky above the market was the same. Same twin suns, same shouting traders, same heavy air full of smoke and spice. But Clara had changed. Gone were the torn rags and weak steps. She now wore a long, simple dress, clean, blue-gray, made by her own hands. Her hair was tied neatly, her eyes steady, her back straight. The same aliens who once ignored her now moved aside. Some pretended not to recognize her. Some did, and lowered their eyes in shame. She carried a basket filled with food grains, fruit, bread, and a few medical supplies. Not for herself, but for others. She now returned to the same alley where she once lay, forgotten and cold. There, a young alien girl sat alone, skin thin, eyes hollow. Just like she had been. Clara knelt and handed the girl a slice of bread. The child looked at it, unsure. Clara smiled gently. "Eat, it's real, I promise." The girl took a bite, and tears filled her eyes. Clara held her hand and whispered the same words once given to her. "You matter. You're not trash, not anymore." Back at the small home outside the city, Mark worked quietly on a new drone, repairing its legs. His hands moved calmly, but his eyes kept flicking to the window. She had been gone an hour. He trusted her, yes. But part of him still worried. Old pain, old habits. Then the door opened, and she walked in. "Hey," he said, smiling. "I brought more than food," Clara said, placing the basket down. "There's a girl in the alley behind the red stall. She reminds me of, well, me." Mark stood. "Do you want to bring her here?" "Not yet," she said, "but I'll keep checking on her. Like you did for me." Mark stepped closer and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've come a long way." Clara looked at him, quiet. "You never asked me for anything. Never forced me. Never made me feel small." He nodded. "Because I saw who you really were, even when you didn't." A pause. Then she said something he didn't expect. "I want to marry you." Mark blinked. "What?" "I want to stay. Not because I owe you. Not because I'm scared. But because you gave me something no one else did." "What?" She smiled. Myself. Mark stepped back, overwhelmed. Are you sure? Clara nodded. I don't need silk or a crown. I need this roof, that old drone, and the man who looked at me. Like I was a person when no one else did. Tears shimmered in Mark's eyes. He reached into his drawer and pulled out a small silver ring. I was saving this. For when you were ready. She held out her hand, and he slipped it on. The fit wasn't perfect, but neither were they, and that made it even better. Weeks later, they stood outside the shelter, watching the sun rise together. The wind was soft, the sky full of promise. She rested her head on his shoulder. Do you think I'll ever stop feeling afraid? She asked. Maybe not, Mark said. But now you don't have to face it alone. She closed her eyes and smiled. She wasn't the starving girl in the dirt anymore. She wasn't a slave, not a number, not a property that she was TLARA, a survivor, a healer, a wife.